Hi everyone and welcome back to DCS World and the A10-CII Quick Start Guide. Today I'm going to be going through the ILS landing procedure. ILS is a pretty good place to be starting with practicing landing, since you've got a lot of guides as to what attitude you should be taking and directions and so on. And I find that helps a little bit to get you visualizing what you should do if you need to do a visual landing approach. Now I've set up this mission where we are to land at Batumi. Batumi's over there. We're starting at a 90-degree course from the landing angle, so we can see how we'd go about intercepting the ILS signal. Now very often you'll already have the coordinates and the ILS set up before your mission during that pre-flight setup. But just in case you don't, or you need to land at an airport you weren't planning to, let's just start by going through how you can bring up airport information using the CDU. So if we go over to the CDU, we can either look down here, or let's just avoid craning our neck too much and just push CDU on the right MFCD. We then want to go to the nav page. Again, we can do that with the controls down here, or you can click the function button on the upfront controller and then press 2 nav. I'll take you to the nav page here, which has a whole load of options to help you with navigating. The one we want here is down here, the divert page. This will list the 5 nearest airports to you, and in this case we want Batumi, so we push the OSB next to Batumi. And here we have Batumi's information here. Important ones to note here is the runway, and this gives the bearing of the runway itself. So they cut off the last digit, so 13 is a bearing of 130. So we can start by putting that into our course selector here. Turn this to 130. Just roll the mouse until that says 130. You can see the needle there is aligning 130. Now this also has the ILS and the TACAN frequencies, so we can put those in. As I said, today we're going to be using ILS, so if we go down here, we can set up our ILS. So right click once on the outer edge of this left hand dial, that turns the power on. You can see the little tiny needle there is now pointing to power. If you then roll the mouse wheel over the left hand dial, we can change that to 110. Frequency is 110.30. So we roll the mouse wheel over the right hand dial to change the decimal and turn that all the way down to 30. Now we just need to power on the ILS. We do that on the front here by pushing ILS. And then to make sure that we're only getting the ILS signal and not the TACAN signal, we can turn off the TACAN by again pushing TCN there. The last thing we're going to need to do is make sure that we can communicate with the runway. If you've got easy communication enabled, you don't need to do anything, just use the communication menu and it will auto-tune. If you've got it disabled, you're going to need to put in one of these codes. So here, approach and tower on the same frequency. We've got 2 frequencies here. This is just whether we want to use the UHF or the VHF. We can put both of those in here. So the VHF frequency is 131.0. So go down here, change this to 131.0. UHF frequency is 260.0. This is our UHF radio, 260.00. Don't worry about getting the various radios confused. You won't be able to tune them to the wrong frequency. So you can't put the UHF on the frequency 131. You can't put the VHF on a frequency of 260. So just change whichever one is closer to that. Last thing we're just going to do so we can see our approach is if we make the left MFCD on the TAD page SOI by pushing the coolie left, or pushing and holding the coolie left command, can then put data management switch down a couple times to zoom out. So we can see our aircraft wing form there. I'll put in a waypoint dead ahead of us that will be the rough intercept angle, and then Batumi is marked here as our landing destination. If you were landing at an emergency airport, you wouldn't have any of these waypoints set up, but you should still be able to see the airport on your tab display. So really that's everything set up, so I'm just going to exit active pause now. Level us off, and we just need to fly forward. Let's just check in with ATC. So I open the comms menu, in this case I'm opening the UHF comms menu. F5 to go to ATC. Batumi in this case is the closest airport, so F1. It's just listed in the order of range, so you may need to check in with one of the later ones if you're checking in with an airport that's quite far away, but in this case Batumi is the closest, F1, and then just call inbound.
Batumi, infield 1-1, inbound. Infield 1-1, Batumi, fly heading 211, Fort 4, QFE 29.89, runway 13, to pattern altitude.
So there they just confirm some information, so we need to fly heading 211, 4 miles. QFE is 29.89, so we can adjust that on our altimeter here to match that, 29.89. Pattern altitude is normally 3,000 feet. We can see our altitude just on the right side of the HUD there. Otherwise, for now, I just need to keep flying this course. As we start to approach, on the lower display, we see the nav needle sliding across. It's because I've just overshot the ILS beam. So I can just fly back to correct that. What I want to have is that lower dial having the beam centered and pointing upright. We can also see that on the ADI, the heading tapes have come alive. Those are guiding me to the attitude I should fly to put myself on the glide path. And I also have on the left-hand side of that a little marker that tells me where the glide path is in relation to me. So if it's up, I want to fly a little higher than I am. If it's down, I need to lower my altitude. At this point, we're close enough to the airfield. We've been cleared for a visual, so I can now request landing.
Infield 1-1, request landing. Infield 1-1, Batumi, cleared to land, runway 13.
I need to bleed off a lot of speed, and I like doing that by deploying my air brakes out full and putting throttle to 0. Now at this stage we can also put flaps all the way down, and we can keep an eye on the flap indicator on the left hand side. When that lowers, that means that your flaps are safe. They won't deploy at too high a speed, so you don't need to worry about overspeeding your flaps. Otherwise I'm flying, just keeping an eye on my various indicators. Got a landing gear warning there, so I'm just dropping my landing gear. And what I'm trying to do is fly towards where the yellow markers are on the ADI, trying to keep my speed so that my angle of attack indicator has a circle on it, and more than anything, trying to place my velocity vector on the HUD over where I want to set down. In this case, just the touchdown area. Use throttle to control your rate of ascent or descent, and use the stick to control your speed. When you're over the airfield, just throttle back and set it down nicely, and then apply both toe brakes and hold them. If you've got anti-skid enabled, which we do over here, you don't have to worry about skidding, so you can just hold down your toes until you slow down to a nice comfortable speed. As you get very slow, engage nose wheel steering with the nose wheel steering button. You can, if you like, come to a complete stop on the runway, or you can just stop braking whenever you feel you're controllable and head towards the taxiway. Otherwise, that was it. And really, this is one of those things that just takes practice. So set yourself up a quick mission when you are on approach and just practice over and over again, and eventually it becomes second nature. One note I'd have is use these displays as a general guide. They're to tell you roughly where you should be pointing, but don't try and chase these needles, otherwise you can get into serious problems, particularly on landing. As you're getting closer, you can see the runway. Really, you can stop looking at these indicators altogether. Just focus on where your velocity vector is. Try and aim to keep that where you want to land. That is the key thing you need to do. And the only other indicator you really need to worry about is your angle of attack, or your on-speed angle of attack indicator here. We didn't really go through this at the time since it's a rather rapid approach. But if this lower button is lit with the arrow pointing upwards, you are going too fast and you need to slow down. If you have the circle, you are on the correct on speed for your angle of attack. If the top one is lit, you are going too slow. And again, you are just using the pitch to change your speed on landing. It does seem counterintuitive. That's the way we do this for all aircraft. Essentially, it takes too long to use the throttle to adjust your speed, so we use stick input to adjust speed, use throttle input to adjust your rate of descent. Anyway, if you have any questions, please do just leave them down below, and otherwise I hope to catch you in the next episode. Until then, be kind to yourself and everyone else. Cheers.